Christina here for Card Player TV, and I'm with Andrew Brokos, Card Player Pro and Poker Savvy Coach. Thanks so much for coming.
I'm glad to be here.
He's doing very well in the main event. He's on to day 3, and we're going to talk about a turning point in his tournament. But first, tell me how your day 1 went.
I was not super happy with day 1, actually. I come to the main event expecting a really soft field. I mean, that's why I'm playing the tournament. And I felt like both my tables at day 1 were reasonably tough, certainly tougher than I'm expecting. And I don't really feel like I was necessarily playing my best either. So I finished the day with 16,000 chips. It's just barely over half of what we started the day with.
It's interesting because you're known for playing cash games, and your tournament stats show that you've got 3 live major cashes, and they've all been in the main event the last 3 years.
That's pretty much the only live poker that I play.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Your success in the main event hasn't motivated you to try other tournaments?
I did go to Bay 101 this year and played the WPT, just the main event of that, which it went all right. I lasted the full 1 day and then went out like the first half hour of the second day, so I had a couple extra days to tour around California, which wasn't the end of the world.
Well, okay, so in the main event you start very deep stacked. Do you think your edge may come from playing so many cash games that you know how to navigate in the beginning levels of the tournament?
Yeah, I do think that helps a lot, especially when I had tables like I did on day 1 where there are a lot of very good tournament players. I think if we had been shallow stacked, I probably wouldn't have even been a favorite at that table because those guys are probably better than I am at navigating shallower stacks. I think the only reason I was really even able to hold my own is that I am more experienced than they are playing with like 200 big blind stacks.
Alright, so 16,000 after day 1, half your starting stack. How was that in comparison to the blinds? Were you going to be in a rush going into day 2?
No, we were actually still, I mean, it's a really nice structure for this tournament, which is the other reason why I play it in addition to the soft field. So we came in with blinds of 200, 400, so I still had like 40 big blinds and more than enough room. I could even get away with playing 1 or 2 hands badly, as I did, and still recover.
I also had a question. If beginning players see that they have half their starting stack, do you think that a lot of them rush it and feel like they need to gamble even though they still have a decent stack?
I'm sure they do, and it's definitely something that I used to do, and I mean that I'm still tempted to do. I have to kind of think my way out of it and realize it's nice having that couple days off after day 1 to think and reflect and say, okay, you're really not in that bad of a shape. You've still got 40 big blinds, plenty of room to maneuver, and it's also nice, with my history in this tournament, that I've done well in past years, and I know that in those years there were times when I was very short and I was able to recover and still do well, so it's nice having that history to remind myself.
How did you start to recover on day 2?
Really, the turning point for me, I felt like initially I wasn't playing very well and wasn't adapting very well to my table. I had a very tough draw on Poker News. They were calling it the Table of Death.
I saw that in your blog.
Just with a couple of very good players, and especially lined up around to my left.
And
initially, so I had Luca Pagano. I think that's how you pronounce his name, on my immediate left, and there's a guy named Grant Levy, who I think is an Australian pro, and there are a couple other people. I don't want to like screw up anyone's name, but a few other people who definitely knew what they were doing, and there really weren't much in the way of soft spots. And I think I was just trying to get away with stealing too many pots early on, just trying to open raise too much with a guy like Luca behind you, who's both very good and pretty loose and aggressive player. He was just calling or re-raising me almost all the time that I opened, and I wasn't adapting very well to that. So I managed to stick around mostly just from picking up big hands. Like I got really short, I got pocket aces and tripled up with those. But the thing was, I didn't feel like I was actually doing anything well. All I was doing was getting good cards. I wasn't actually doing anything special. So the hand that really kind of turned it around for me, I'd been thinking to myself for a while that I needed to actually like make a play, because all I'd been doing was playing my cards. So I was sick of getting 3-bet by Luca on my left, and I had raised with pocket queens. He 3-bet me, and I 4-bet him with the queens, and he folded. The very next hand, I got king jack. I raised. Luca called me, and then this guy Levy on the button 3-bet it, and it was I didn't really know that much about how much he knew about tournament poker, but it was a really perfect spot to make a squeeze play, and it seemed like he knew enough to recognize that. So I actually 4-bet him with the king jack, and I thought it would give me some extra credibility because I just 4-bet the previous hand. I thought he wouldn't think that I would do it twice in a row on a bluff.
Okay.
So I 4-bet him with the king jack, and he ended up calling the 4-bet And
Okay. What does this leave with your stack size?
I think my 4-bet was to about 12,000,
Mhm.
and I had 45,000 or so in my stack, and I really was not concerned about him 5-bet bluffing me at all. I was very comfortable folding if he 5-bet, and I think you're going to see like aces, kings, ace, king, and probably nothing else from
Okay.
him if he 5-bets.
So when he just flat calls there, what are you giving him?
Not aces, kings, or ace, king.
Like
I think he's just going to shove those.
Okay.
So I don't know what exactly he could have. I mean,
Mhm.
maybe as strong as tens, jacks, queens,
Mhm.
which would make, I'll tell you in a second what the flop was. It would not have been a good flop for me if that's all I could have had. But I felt like he was actually getting a decent price on the call,
Okay.
which doesn't necessarily make it a correct call for him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he called with a fair number of the things that he 3-bet with, just kind of overvaluing the pot odds that he was getting maybe.
Mhm.
So if he was on a bluff with like some kind of suited connector or something, I actually wouldn't be shocked if he called the raise, because it was a small 4-bet that I
Okay.
made, and I was thinking I'd probably need, if he did call, I'd probably need to bet at a lot of flops, because he probably was going to be calling the 4-bet somewhat wide.
Okay. And so what was the flop?
The flop was actually pretty ideal for me. It was like queen 10-4, I think. It gave me an open-ended draw with an overcard, and at that point there's like 26,000 or so in the pot, and only 30-something thousand left in my stack. So I just bet out like 16,000, fully intending if he did move in to call the rest of it, and hoping he was calling with more than just queens and tens, because that would have been a very good flop for him. And he did end up thinking for a very long time and folding. So, I mean, not only did that get me a lot of chips, but it also kind of renewed my confidence, and it was the first time that I felt like I had actually made something happen as opposed to just playing my cards, which is pretty important.
When you make that bet of half your chips, effectively you're going all in because you're going to call, but what does that do to the other person knowing that you committed yourself? So it prevents them from making a move, and it seems like a strong hand.
Right. That I was hoping that it would look stronger than if I just went all in, especially because all in would be a little bit more than the size of the pot. So I think if I were to just shove all in, he would probably think that at least I wouldn't do that with if I'd flopped like a set with queens or tens, and he might even say that I wouldn't have aces or kings or something. So I thought it would look a little bit stronger if I bet like half the pot or half of my stack instead of overbetting the pot and just shoving in.
Okay. So after that, you started to play better?
I think so. The table actually also got tougher because Isaac Barron, Mr. Menlo from online, moved to the seat on Luca's left. So now I've got Luca Pagano and then Isaac Barron on his left. And then a couple some of the weaker spots at the table got eliminated, and those were also filled up with Tom Schneider, John Shipley, a couple of other people who there were names that I recognized. I didn't really know anything about them, but I knew that they were going to be decent players. So the table just kept getting tougher. And honestly, the biggest adjustment I made was just realizing that I wasn't going to be able to get away with all that much, and changing the way I played to adapt to having a lot of good players at the table, and especially on my left.
So how did you end the day?
I finished up with just over 90,000 chips, so this is certainly a nice increase from 16.
Absolutely. So you've got a few days off. What are you doing in the meantime? Are you kind of filling your time with cash games, or you're just trying to stay off poker until Friday?
I thought about playing the cash games, and I have played a couple since I've been out here, but I'm pretty exhausted from yesterday anyway, so at least today I'm not going to, and tomorrow I probably won't feel like it either, because I'm going to be playing the main event again on Friday. So yeah, mostly just hanging out. I'll try to see some other people. I mean, one of the fun things about me, because I only play live so rarely, is this is the only time of year that I get to see some of the friends that I've met from the poker world. So it's a nice chance to hang out with people.
Absolutely, and I hope you keep that streak going. Let's go for 4 years
so
catching
too.
the main event in a row. That would be great, right?
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, and good luck on Friday.
Thank you.
Christy Arnett for Car Player TV for this edition of The Turning Point with Andrew Brokos. Thank you so much.
Thank you.